Hey everybody, time for part 2 of Learning with Little Tweet, and it's Wacky Wednesday. I'm still wearing my wacky green wig. It's kind of itchy, but you all can't see it right now. I want to start today with reading a poem because we haven't done anything with poetry yet. So, whoops, sorry, Little Tweet. Some of you might have heard of this author before. His name is Shel Silverstein, and he writes some really silly, wacky poems. And just like Dr. Seuss, sometimes his poems can just be kind of silly and ridiculous, but sometimes they have important messages. Like this one's about love. I love his poems so much. But this one I'm going to read to you today because it's called If the World Was Crazy. Now, I know that a lot of people are saying that the world feels a little bit crazy right now because things are just different than we're used to them being. Well, Shel Silverstein wrote a poem about if the world was crazy. So I want you to just listen to the poem the first time I read it and kind of close your eyes and try to make a picture in your mind. Sometimes when we're reading poems, they can make a picture in our mind. And I want you to see if you can see any of these silly pictures in your head. Here we go. If the world was crazy. If the world was crazy, you know what I'd eat? A big slice of soup and a whole quart of meat. A lemonade sandwich, and then I might try some roasted ice cream or a bicycle pie, a nice notebook salad, an underwear roast, an omelet of hats, and some crisp cardboard toast, a thick malted milk made from pencils and daisies, and that's what I'd eat if the world was crazy. If the world was crazy, you know what I'd wear? A chocolate suit and a tie of eclair, some marshmallow earmuffs, some licorice shoes, and I'd read a paper of peppermint news. I'd call the boys Susie and I'd call the girls Harry. I'd talk through my ears, and I always would carry a paper umbrella for when it grew hazy, to keep in the rain if the world was crazy. If the world was crazy, you know what I'd do? I'd walk on the ocean and swim in my shoe. I'd fly through the ground and I'd skip through the air. I'd run down the bathtub and bathe on the stair. When I met somebody, I'd say, "Goodbye, Joe." And when I was leaving, then I'd say, "Hello." And the greatest of men would be silly and lazy, so I would be king if the world was crazy. All right, guys, what do you think? That's pretty crazy, isn't it? So what I want you to think about something crazy that you heard about in that poem. Something that maybe made you giggle a little bit. I liked the marshmallow earmuffs part. And I think he said he was going to eat some underwear. I think that's kind of strange and silly. It says that he was going to go swimming in his shoe. What do you think it would be like to go swimming in your shoe? That would probably be kind of stinky and yucky, right? All right, guys. So I'm going to read it one more time. And this time, every time you hear rhyming words, I want you to put your finger on your nose. Remember, not in your nose, on your nose. Right, Little Tweet? We don't put our finger in our nose, just on it. So every time you hear a rhyming word, put your finger on your nose. Okay? I'll put my finger on Little Tweet's nose when I hear a rhyming word. You ready? If the world was crazy, you know what I'd eat? A big slice of soup and a whole quart of meat. Meat, eat. A lemonade sandwich, and then I might try some roasted ice cream or a bicycle pie. Try pie. A nice notebook salad, an underwear roast, an omelet of hats, and some crisp cardboard toast. Roast, toast. A thick malted milk made from pencils and daisies, and that's what I'd eat if the world was crazy. Daisy, crazy. If the world was crazy, you know what I'd wear? A chocolate suit and a tie of eclair. Wear eclair. some marshmallow earmuffs, some licorice shoes, and I'd read a paper of peppermint news. Shoes, news. Now, I don't know if you guys can see, but all the rhyming words are at the end of each line. Sometimes poets do that. I'd call the boys Susie, and I'd call the girls Harry. I'd talk through my ears, and I always would carry. Harry, carry. A paper umbrella for when it grew hazy, to keep in the rain if the world was crazy. Hazy, crazy, right there. If the world was crazy, you know what I'd do? I'd walk on the ocean and swim in my shoe. Shoe. I'd fly through the ground and I'd skip through the air. I'd run down the bathtub and bathe on the stair. Air, stare. When I met somebody, I'd say, "Goodbye, Joe." And when I was leaving, then I'd say, "Hello, Joe, hello." And the greatest of men would be silly and lazy, so I would be king if the world was crazy. Lazy, crazy. Wow, those were some pretty good rhyming words. All right, guys, we're going to stop this part of our lesson and we're going to go on to math. Hey guys, it's time for part 2 of Learning with Little Tweet. It's Wacky Wednesday, April Fool's Day, and it's time for math. So I want to make math a little wacky today. It's kind of like a little hunt in your house, and it's practice with counting bigger numbers, okay? So I have 3 questions for you, and you get to be little detectives and see if you can find out the answers to these 3 questions. Question number 1. How many windows are in your house? Now, you might want to walk around with your whiteboard and your marker, and maybe every time you find a window, you can do a tally mark, or you can draw a counter, and that will help you to keep track, okay? And then remember, we always like to check our answers too. So after you think you know how many windows there are, you might want to just double check. How many windows are in your house? Now, everybody has a different amount, guys. So just do your best to try to figure out how many windows are in your house. Question number 2. How many doors are in your house? Now, we're not just talking about like the front door or the garage door or the back door. There's closet doors, bedroom doors, bathroom doors. There's all sorts of doors. You might even, oh my goodness, a door just opened in my house and it's Layton. There's all sorts of kinds of doors, right, guys? So the question is, how many doors are in your house? Now the last one is a challenge, all right? So these are for my friends who feel like you're up for a challenge and maybe you're really good at counting by tens. How many toes are in your house? And I'm talking about like toes on people's feet, okay? So for example, if you have 3 people in your house, how many toes would that be? But here's something you need to think about. Are there any pets in your house that have toes also? They might not have 10. You've got to figure that out, right? So you guys can kind of try to decide what counts as toes and what doesn't count as toes. So I don't know if you need to count stuffed animal toes, for example. Like I have Razor here, and it looks like Razor has some toes, but I don't think I'm going to count stuffed animals' toes. I think I'm just going to count like toes from living things. We've learned about living things, so people and pets. In my house, see, I don't know how many toes Neo has. I'm going to have to go check. But the people in my house, I have 5 people in my house right now. So
I think he has 16.
So how many toes do the people in my house have? You guys figure that out. But you need to figure out how many toes there are in your house right now. Okay, guys, have fun with our wacky math scavenger hunt. You can, remember, use your whiteboard to help you. You can practice with your tally marks. You can draw counters. But I do want you to write the number. So let's say there's like 38 windows in your house. You would write the number 38 and practice knowing how to write that number. Okay? All right, guys, have fun.